You did everything right. You cut back on coffee, you stopped eating out as much, you set up that automatic transfer to your savings account, 20, 50, maybe $100 a month, and it felt good. It felt responsible. So why, at the end of last year, did your savings account look almost exactly the same as it did the year before? Not because you failed, not because you spent too much, but because there's something happening to your money that nobody ever explained to you, and it's been working against you in silence every single month for years. Your savings account is not saving you. It's slowly making you poorer. And by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why and what to do instead. Here's a number that should bother you more than it probably does. The average savings account pays somewhere between 0.5% and 2% interest per year. That sounds fine until you look at the other number. Inflation, the rate at which prices actually rise, has been running at 4, 5, sometimes 6% or more in recent years. Do the math. If your money earns 1% and prices go up 5%, your savings just lost 4% of its real purchasing power. Not lost as in gone from your account, lost as in the same amount of money buys less than it did last year. Think about that. You were disciplined, you saved, you did the right thing, and the system quietly made your effort worth less. This isn't a new problem, it's just gotten sharper, and most people have no idea it's happening because nobody ever drew them a picture. The reason so many people stay stuck in the saving but not growing cycle isn't laziness, it's that the way we were taught to think about money is roughly 40 years out of date. Your parents, or their parents, grew up in a world where interest rates on savings accounts were sometimes 6, 8, even 10%. Saving genuinely did build wealth then. You could park money in a bank and watch it grow. That world no longer exists, but the advice lived on, and millions of people are still following a map that leads nowhere. Let's get into the actual mechanics, because once you see this, you can't unsee it. There's a concept called real return. It just means what your money actually earns after you subtract inflation. Real return equals your interest rate minus inflation. So if your savings account pays 1.5% and inflation is 4.5%, your real return is -3% every year. Now contrast that with investing in something like a broad stock market indexed fund. Not picking stocks, not gambling, just buying a small piece of thousands of companies at once. Over the long run, the average annual return has historically been around 7 to 10% before inflation. After inflation, roughly 5 to 7%. Now you might be thinking, but the stock market is risky. I could lose everything. That's the exact thought, and it's worth taking seriously. Yes, in any single year, markets can drop, sometimes sharply. They fall, and they fall hard. But here's what the fear misses. It's not about any single year. It's about time. Look at a simple example. Two people, both 28 years old, both decide to set aside $300 a month. Person A puts it in a savings account, earns about 1.5% per year. Person B invests it in a diversified index fund, earns around 7% per year on average. After 30 years, when they're both 58, Person A has saved roughly $130,000. Person B's portfolio has grown to approximately $340,000. Same money, same discipline, same monthly amount. The only difference is the mechanism they use to hold it. That's not luck, that's math. Quiet, patient, relentless math. Here's what nobody tells you. The banks know this. The investment companies know this. The financial system was not designed with confusion as a side effect. In many ways, the confusion is the product. Because here's the uncomfortable truth. An informed public that understood compound returns and real purchasing power would stop leaving trillions of dollars sitting in low-interest accounts. And those deposits? They're extraordinarily profitable for banks. They borrow your money at 1.5% and lend it out at 6, 8, 15, even 25% on credit cards. Let that sit for a second. Your savings account is not just failing to grow your money, it is actively funding someone else's wealth building, while you get a fraction of a percent in return.
And the most insidious part? It feels safe. It feels responsible. The number in your account goes up slowly, and that feels like progress. But the price of everything around you is going up faster. You're running. You're genuinely running. But the treadmill is moving in the opposite direction. The math doesn't lie, and the math is brutal. But here's where the story changes, because none of this is permanent. None of it is your fault, and all of it is fixable, not with genius, not with a windfall, just with understanding. Consider someone like Mia. She's 31, works in administration, takes home around $2,400 a month, had about $4,000 sitting in her bank account. For years, she didn't touch it, didn't invest it, didn't think she knew enough, didn't feel ready. Then she learned one thing, that she didn't need to pick stocks, she didn't need to follow markets, she just needed to open a basic investment account, set up an automatic monthly contribution to a broad index fund, and leave it alone. She started with $150 a month, that's it. She didn't become a financial expert, she didn't change her lifestyle dramatically, she just redirected money that was sitting still into something that could actually move. 10 years later, that account is worth more than she made in her first 3 years of working. She didn't get lucky. She didn't get rich overnight. She just stopped letting inflation quietly eat her future and started letting time work for her instead of against her. That's the whole game. Seriously, that is the whole game. Now zoom out for a second. Why is it that financial literacy isn't taught in schools? Why do we spend years learning things we'll rarely use and 0 hours on how compound interest works, what inflation actually does, or why a savings account isn't the same as building wealth? The generous answer is it just wasn't on the curriculum. The less generous answer is a financially literate population makes different choices. It borrows less. It keeps less in low-return accounts. It challenges the products being sold to it. Either way, the result is the same. Generations of smart, hard-working people operating with an incomplete picture, doing everything they were told, wondering why it never quite adds up. There's a quiet irony in all of this. The people who understand how money works tend to make more of it, not because they're smarter, not because they work harder, but because they stopped playing a game with rules they were never taught. The rules were always there. They just weren't shared equally. They are now. So here's the thought I want to leave you with. Saving money is not a bad habit. Don't stop. An emergency fund, 3 to 6 months of expenses in an accessible place, is genuinely important. That money should stay in savings. But everything beyond that, every dollar you leave sitting in a 1.5% savings account while inflation runs at 4, 5, 6%, that's a decision. Maybe an unconscious one, but a decision. You're not being cautious. You're slowly losing ground while telling yourself you're being responsible. The wealth gap in this world isn't only about who earns the most. It's about who understood early enough that where your money lives matters as much as how hard you work for it. Here's your one small step this week. Not start investing, not learn everything about the stock market, just this. Find out what your savings account is actually paying you right now. Look it up. Write it down. Then find out what inflation is in your country this year. Subtract one from the other. That number, that gap, is the real cost of doing nothing. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. And once you can't unsee it, waiting starts to feel like the riskiest thing you could do. And this is just one piece of a much bigger picture. This video is part of the How Money Actually Works series, where we break down the financial rules most people were never taught. In the next video, we're going to look at something surprisingly expensive, the hidden cost of cheap decisions, because sometimes the lowest price you pay today quietly becomes the highest cost tomorrow. I'll see you there.